Hey, this is Josh Alexander, and today we are going to go over how to purchase a home while staying as safe as possible during this coronavirus pandemic. So let's get into it. Okay, so I want to start off by saying that if you're in one of the high-risk categories, I suggest that you really don't purchase a home right now unless you absolutely have to. So stay at home, stay safe. But for those that do want to purchase a home right now and are okay taking the risk, let's go through some of the things that you can be doing to keep yourself safe, as well as what the general process looks like and a few changes that you might need to get used to if you're trying to purchase a house in the next couple months. Okay, so let's go over the most significant change for buyers in terms of how you purchase a home today versus how you purchased a home a few months ago. And that's basically how you're looking and identifying homes. And this is going to be significantly different. So before, you're looking at open houses, you're going touring homes with your agent. Now, most of that has stopped. So no more open houses. Most of the tours you're going to be doing will be some type of virtual tour. So when you're looking on Redfin and Zillow, most new homes coming on the market should have some type of virtual tour with them, because selling agents know that most buyers cannot enter the home anymore. So when they're taking pictures of the home, they should also be doing some type of virtual 3D tour, which enables you to walk through the property virtually so you have a better understanding of the layout. So that's a common thing that you'll start seeing more and more as we go forward with these homes listing and hitting the market. So one of the biggest changes with the virtual tours is because there are no open houses now, one things that agents are starting to do are doing virtual open houses. So what is a virtual open house? That's basically where the agent goes onto the MLS and they'll basically say that, hey, we're going to have an open house, a virtual open house on Saturday at 1 o'clock. So if you want to join us, log on to this Zoom meeting or something similar to that. And that will give you an access to the agent who is going to be walking through the house with you so they can answer any questions that you might have. So this is something that on Zillow, Redfin, you're not really going to have access to yet in terms of knowing when those virtual open houses are, because they haven't updated their system yet to be able to show that information. So this is where working with an agent really comes in handy, because they're able to look at the agent remarks on the MLS to let you know if they are hosting a virtual open house, when it's going to be, what you need to click on, and that way you're able to log on and ask any questions about the property. So what this enables you to do is not only get the static pictures that you're used to seeing on Zillow and Redfin, but you're also getting a virtual tour, able to ask the questions. If you need them to look into a closet a little bit more, if you want to have a certain look at a ceiling fixture, they're able to do that so you can get a really good understanding of the general condition of the house and get all your questions answered without even walking into the property. So as a buyer, you now have more information about the physical appearance of the home than you've ever had before. So on top of that, something else that a lot of selling agents are starting to do is giving out disclosures about the property that you usually only get during escrow. So these are things like seller disclosures, where they tell you what they know about the property, the general condition, any updates they've done, any repairs that have been made that have been significant. And this, for a buyer, is great information to have, because it will determine if you really want to place an offer on that property or not. So not only you're getting a more physical picture of the property with those virtual tours, you're getting more of the background knowledge as well to understand the general condition of the home before you even decide to step foot out of your house to go tour a property. So if you do want to tour the property before submitting an offer, which most buyers still want to do, then that's when you can set up a one-on-one appointment with your agent, making sure you're keeping that 6-foot rule, wearing your mask, keeping your hand sanitizer available, going into the home, and then going through and checking everything out. So most sellers right now that are allowing people in their home still, what they're basically doing to protect you as well as themselves is they're keeping all the lights on, they're opening all the doors, all the closet doors, so you can walk in there and not to touch anything and still get a very good understanding of how the whole house is laid out and the condition of the house. So that's one of the last things you'll do before you place an offer on the home. And some buyers now, because of all the virtual things, are even comfortable placing offers without going into the home. And that might be something that you need to be a little bit more comfortable with yourself, because some sellers right now are not allowing any access to their property unless you're in escrow. So that's something that you could place an offer on a home without seeing it. And I know it sounds scary, but on the back end, what you can do to help yourself out is you can write into the contract and basically say, hey, here's the offer price, here's all the things that we're asking for in the contract, but we do also want to have some type of visual inspection on the property within the first 48 hours of opening escrow. And that way the seller will know you're serious. They'll be able to look at the offer and you can come to agreement on pretty much everything, get into escrow, and then go check the property out yourself. And if there's something that didn't match what you've seen before in the photos and virtual tours, then you still have a way to get out of the contract and move on to a different property. So that's one of the things that you're seeing more and more often now with everything going on and everybody staying at home. Okay, so let's say you get into escrow. So you've only gone out to the property once, either right before or right after you went into escrow, depending on how you wrote that contract. So now what has really changed for you as a buyer? And the answer is not much. So the only significant change in how we do things now for a buyer compared to how it was done before is the general inspection process. So before, the general inspector would go out to the house, they would do their inspection, and towards the end of the inspection, you would meet them on site at the property, and they would go over everything they found with you, answer any questions you might have. Now, the only difference is now the inspector is going to go out there, get all the information, but then go back home, write the report up, and then give you a call and go over all the information over the phone and answer any questions you might have over the phone. So that's it. Really, the only thing that's changed is you have one less point of contact during escrow with this inspector. Everything else has remained about the same. So in terms of how many face-to-face contact or leaving your home that you'll need to have during escrow as a buyer, you really only have two, and that's all towards the end of escrow. The first one, if you aren't paying all cash and you are doing a loan for this property, is that an escrow company will need to send a notary out to your house to sign those final loan documents that you'll do usually 5 to 7 days before the loan closes. The second point of contact will be your final verification of property. And what that basically is you'll walk through the property one more time, and if you've negotiated any repairs to be done with the seller during escrow, you're going to verify that those repairs were done. And then you're also just checking to make sure the property is in generally the same condition as you last saw it at the beginning of escrow. So there's no giant holes in the wall, broken windows, that type of thing. You're just verifying that everything is similar to when you saw it last. So that's it. During escrow, there's only 2 points of contact that you'll have, like I said, either face-to-face or leaving your home. Before escrow, you're really only going to the house once. So in total, you can get away with only really having 3 points of contact during a transaction. So as a buyer, if you're keeping yourself safe and you're following those CDC guidelines, wearing the mask, keeping the hand sanitizer handy when you do go out to these 3 times, you're going to be relatively safe during this whole process. So interest rates are still low right now. So if you're able to and you want to go out and look at these properties, there's ways of doing it to keep yourself safe, and the points of contact you're having are going to be very minimal. Okay, so one final thought for buyers, and this kind of goes back to the beginning when you first start looking for properties. This is really going to be the biggest determination of how much risk is involved for you. If you're someone that has your criteria in terms of must-haves for your home narrowed down, you know the neighborhood you want to live in, then you're going to be able to identify these properties a lot easier, as well as having all this additional information that you don't usually have with those virtual walkthroughs, the virtual open houses, having some of those sellers' disclosures up front if you really are interested in certain properties. And this is going to enable you to leave your house only a few times at most to identify that property. Now, if you don't have that criteria really buttoned down and know exactly what you want, this is where you can kind of get into trouble, where you're looking at 5 or 6 different properties before you actually place an offer on one. So really the best advice I can give you as a buyer is, before you start the process, make sure you know exactly what you want, you know the neighborhoods you want to live in, and that way these properties you're looking at and taking these virtual tours, you're really only having to go to maybe 1 or 2 before you put an offer in and hopefully get accepted. So that's really the best way to minimize those contact points when you're doing this transaction, and it all has to do with the very beginning, because like I said, once you get into escrow, there's only really 2 contact points where you're leaving your house or meeting face-to-face with someone. So the biggest variable is how long it takes you to find the property and how many times you have to leave your house because you're searching for these properties. So if you're able to narrow those down, it's going to be best for you. It's going to be best for any possible sellers because you're going into less and less property. And a couple other things you could be doing when you're doing this process is, if you don't know the neighborhood, check out Google Maps. You can look to see if there's a supermarket close by, what kind of restaurants are close by. You can drive by the neighborhood without going into the house if you're not familiar with the area, and get yourself basically to know the area that you're in, the house that you're placing the offer in. So that's one thing that you could be doing on your end as you're going through these virtual open houses, to make sure you're comfortable not only with the house, but with the neighborhood you're living in. So when you place an offer, you're very committed to it, you know everything about the area, and that way you're gonna have a smooth and hopefully quick escrow. Okay, so buyers, in terms of safety, really the biggest thing you could be doing is making sure that you're following the CDC guidelines. So if you're going out of the house to tour properties or getting these things notarized, just make sure you have your hand sanitizer with you, you're wearing your mask. If you have some type of shoe booties to put on when you're touring the property, great. And then just make sure that you're really not touching anything when you're going into people's houses. So the sellers, hopefully, if they're doing it correctly, should be trying to keep these doors open for you, the lights on, so when you're walking through the property, there's nothing to touch. But on your end, just making sure that you're not touching anything in the house if possible. And if you do have to touch it, letting the seller know what you're touching would be a great idea. So that way they can also feel confident knowing that they disinfected their house correctly once you leave, because they know the areas that they need to focus on. I'm updating everybody at least once a week on what's going on with the market, as well as doing interviews with other industry professionals so you can get their side of what's happening as well, just to keep you as informed as possible as we all navigate through this unprecedented time and hopefully come out the other end as soon as possible. Thanks and have a great day.